Our conversation for today is with Josh Desmond. He is a guitarist in a band called Bulletbelt. In this conversation, we talked about his journey, his life, his influences. He also showed us some of his favorite riffs and gave us some insights on where the band is heading. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. This will help the channel a lot. Thank you.
Master of Puppets.
What made you decide that that should be the first song that you should learn?
When I was about 9 or 10, I heard that for the first time, and I remember just thinking, "Wow, that is one of the heaviest things that I had ever heard at that particular time." And when I learned to play it, obviously I was alternating it, but then realized James Hetfield is just downpicking the whole thing, and that just added to the intensity of it. So when I was probably about 13, I was old enough to be able to learn how to do it. And that riff was what started the downpicking for me, and I would say that it's incorporated into my style. And I would say that probably about 85 to 90% of the riffs that I play are all downpicking, and it all started from that riff. For me personally, just hearing that riff for the first time it's just crushing. And even to this day, it was released in 1986, and it still holds up today. And I think that you have, music that's much heavier, when you got your grindcore, progressive, technical metal, but it all goes back to, Metallica, I think, and you could go way back to Black Sabbath and, earlier bands. But for me, I think that Master of Puppets has all of the riffs that you need to be able to branch out into what music is today in terms of metal.
What's your journey going into metal?
For me, it was listening to songs on the radio. I grew up in the 90s, so most of the songs were guitar-based music, and it wasn't really a lot of metal that was being played, but it was still quite heavy for its time, like, bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Garbage. You start going from grunge into alternative Smashing Pumpkins type music. Even a lot of the pop music at the time was still, mainly guitar driven. And it was from there that kind of opened the doorway to, well, there's heavier music. You start getting into, Bloodhound Gang, especially when you're a kid and you start hearing simple riffs like that, but it's still like, wow, like...
So slow, but like there's something in there like, oh.
Yeah, especially as a young guitarist like myself, who... I spent most of my childhood playing reggae and blues and things like that, so I already had an understanding of the technical side of the guitar and the playing ability. But as soon as I started hearing rock music, that was where I realized that there was a whole new level to guitar playing that I hadn't been exposed to yet. But I think I do have a story. And when I was about 9, I was in class, and we had quite a strict teacher, Mrs. Borther. She was so strict, and she would make you sit up straight, and you had to hold your pencil a certain way. And the class next door had a teacher who was very chill. She would, you guys just have free time, just do whatever you want. And I remember, Mrs. Borther making us do maths and whatever, and I could hear this noise coming from the next classroom, and I was like, what is that? And I remember I stood up, I'm getting screamed at, like, sit down, Joshua, sit down. And I just walked out of the classroom, and I walked into the next classroom, and, to paint a picture of the scene, there's, paper jets flying around, there's kids playing WWF wrestling, there's girls sitting on their desks and stuff, the teacher's smoking a cigarette out the window, and there's this kid just sitting in the back corner, and he's just banging his head. And I walked over to him and I said, "What the fuck are you listening to?" And he looked at me and he goes, "This is Nookie by Limp Bizkit." And yeah, that when I heard that for the first time, that was metal. That was the first metal that I ever heard. And he let me take his CD home, and I was able to dub it onto a cassette tape. And yeah, I wore that thing pretty thin. Yeah.
What inspired you to pick up a guitar?
Yeah, well, it started much earlier for me than that. When my father was a guitar player, he wasn't like a professional guitarist. He was, he had an acoustic guitar, which I still have today. And he'd come home from work and he'd always be like, "Hey, can you get me my guitar? I want to play some songs." And I'd watch him play, and he'd do a few chords and sing a few songs. And I remember saying to him, "I want to learn how to do that. That looks pretty cool." And he said, "Okay." So he taught. This is the first thing he taught me. So I must have been about 4 or 5, but I had to play it down on my knees like this because I was too small to hold this big ass guitar. But that's kind of where it all started. And then unbeknownst known to him, I didn't put it down. Yeah, now I'm 38 and I'm still playing guitar.
I heard one story similar to that. Someone said you have a placking. It might be a term different.
Oh, you mean
you have that slow, and then intro, down picking, play guitar, and then you have like slide.
It's kind of like it's like power chords slide.
Power chords slide,
yeah, but with a bit of hammer on it.
Yeah. So if you want to learn heavy music, that should be the first song you should learn, because that will teach you a whole bunch of.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say definitely make that the first song that you learn. I mean, Smoke on the Water was pretty good for me. I mean, obviously it's played much differently to how I learned it, but I think that has got everything that you need. It's a simple song where even if you're not a musician, you know it. So when you try and play that on the guitar, you already have an understanding of where the downstroke should be, and it's just learning it has everything. You're using 2 strings, you're using palm mutes, vibrato on the end, slides, and I think that is a good introduction to people that want to do what we do for a living.
Right. And what's the most soft for those who don't like rock? Is there a softer side that they can start with, do you think?
Although my dad showed me Smoke on the Water, he was also listening to stuff like Cat Stevens, the Eagles, the Doobie Brothers, Pink Floyd. So I think those are good places to start as well for the not so heavier side, because there's nothing wrong with just playing a G chord. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that is the perfect way to start to build your chops, learn rhythm, learn songs, learn songwriting, and then you build from there. That's what I think.
How did you learn, is it a self-taught learning for you? Or you were at school?
Well, I grew up in a really small town, and it had a population of at least maybe 500 people, and I was one of like 3 musicians, and the other musicians there were people that were much older, and I never really had musical peers that I could play with or any type of music teachers. So a lot of it was self-taught. I did have a few music teachers. I started with a lady called Wendy Nethercott when I was about 5 or 6, and I was with her for about 9 months before she said, "I can't teach you anymore." Yeah, it was just a constant progression. And then when I was about 12, I entered a talent quest, and I played Stevie Ray Vaughan's "Mary Had a Little Lamb." Yeah, I learned it, That's how I learned to play it. And, I was just having fun and changing between chords, just a simple blues, structure. And when I did the talent quest, I just played the guitar by myself, and I asked if I could use one of their electric guitars, and they said, okay, sure. Then you gave this little kid a guitar, and I started playing. I did maybe like a minute by myself, and then all of a sudden this drummer and this bass player started playing behind me, and I was like, holy crap, I'm in a band. And the drummer, his name was Gary Luca, and he was a high school music teacher. And he came up after me and he said, dude, you're really, really good. How old are you? And I said, I'm 11, and he offered to tutor me. So, I'd finish school like every Tuesday or Wednesday, and then my mum would take me out to the high school and he taught me. And, he started introducing me to lead guitar and Dire Straits, Carlos Santana, Pink Floyd, but not the rhythm side, going deep into the lead territory. And, he really emphasized feel, letting the music breathe, letting notes breathe, and, making the instrument a voice for you, That's kind of where I developed my, the foundation of, what I needed to then take it further myself. And then you start listening to metal, and then all of a sudden you're the only one in your little town who listens to that type of shit. So you have to get, guitar tab books and, watch VHS tapes, because back then there was no YouTube and DVDs and shit like that. So
MTV. Just
yeah,
MTV.
exactly. And it's not as if I could go down the street and say, hey dude, I know you play guitar, can you teach me something? It was from about the age of 13, 14 that I had to start really learning myself.
Any local bands, New Zealand, that is not Bulletbelt, obviously, who you think is heavy, and why?
Any
Personal, no right or wrong answer. It's
so-
your personal opinion.
So you
there's
want to know
nothing-
New Zealand bands that I think are heavy? I've been very fortunate to see many, many, many New Zealand bands throughout my time. And maybe I could just list off a few and name drop, and because I wouldn't be able to play their songs, especially because most of the Bulletbelt stuff is in standard E tuning, where a lot of other bands are using drop tuning, 7 strings.
Right.
There's a band called Pull Down the Sun, which I like. I recently saw Devilskin. I have to give them a shout out. They've been friends of mine for quite a while, and most recently I saw them in Palmerston North, and they hooked my partner and I up with double passes to go in. So, I have to give Paul a shout out for that. There's also a band called Organectomy, and I think that I'd give them a shout out because obviously they're a completely different style to what I do, but they're making moves in the music industry on a worldwide scale. Many times we've crossed paths with them in the airport, and we're coming back from Japan and they're coming home from America, or we're going somewhere, they're going somewhere. So I have to name drop them, but those are 3 that come to mind anyway.
Any song you've written that you feel like it's heavy? Can we hear?
Yeah, sure. There's many songs that I've written that I think are heavy. I guess one that comes to mind would probably be a song called Impaler. And at the time that particular song was written, Bulletbelt was transitioning from a black metal band into what we are today, which is a little bit more accessible, a lot more, I would say, extreme metal. And I say extreme because to me, extreme metal is different genres all blended into one. It's not just black metal, it's not thrash, it's a mixture. But anyway, when I joined the band, the album Warlords was one of the first albums that I worked on, where I was coming up with a majority of the riffs and being in the room with Steve and Tim, and we were putting, it all together organically together. And it's the first song on the album. Anyway, I'll play you the riff. That's Impaler.
You wrote that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the influence behind that?
Well, really, like I said, at the time I joined Bulletbelt, Bulletbelt had already been established for about 6 years at that point. And I basically went through and listened to all of the Bulletbelt material that existed before I joined. And, you know, as a songwriter myself, I kind of knew where I wanted to go musically. So I kind of just blended what Bulletbelt were already doing with how I think Bulletbelt should sound like. And yeah, came up with that. It was just written innocently, just me sitting down with my guitar, just thinking, okay, I need to write a song and what's going to come out. And that came out.
How long did you write that? Usually, sometimes if you write a song, sometimes it takes you a day, a month, a year.
The way in which I write songs is that I sit down and I write the first thing that comes out, and I might then write 2 or 3 riffs that accompany that main riff that could potentially be a chorus or a verse or a bridge or whatever. And I try not to limit myself to sit there and overthink it. Some songs, you know, may take a little bit, but genuinely with a demo, the first thing that comes out, that's recorded, that gets dropped into the bank, and then when it comes time for Bulletbelt album time, I usually submit the songs to Steve, and he goes through and he chooses, that's good, that sucks, this is good. And then we take all of those songs and compile them down to maybe 20 good ones. Usually for an album, there's probably about between 50 to 60 songs written.
Do you write the lyrics as well?
With Bulletbelt, it's usually Steve and Diego that write the lyrics, but there are a couple of songs that I have written the lyrics to. When I write music, I don't necessarily just write riffs and then send them tapes and say, hey, look, here's a riff. Most of my stuff is fully orchestrated: drums, guitar, bass, keyboards, and I also write lyrics for it as well. Sometimes it may not be lyrics, it might just be me humming to a tape just so that there's a melody there. They may change the words, they may use it completely. I'd say that one of the first songs that I wrote for Bulletbelt that was pretty much 80% fully orchestrated with lyrics was a song called Arminius. And, you know, I have to give credit to the other guys as well, because I mean, I didn't fully write it myself. It's definitely a team effort. I may write a song and take it to the guys, but Steve will say, why don't we try this? Or what about if I did this drum beat? And Tim might say, I want to do this bass part, which may change something that I do. But it usually, those types of songs usually stem from my creation first, and then it goes to the band, and we you know, create a Frankenstein.
Yeah. Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I like Arminius. Can we play some?
Arminius? Yeah, sure.
The way forward, you mentioned Bulletbelt is moving to like more of like easily reachable. Is that the term you use? I forgot the term you use.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, you can like, you're no longer going to be like the black metal band.
If you go back and you listen to Warlords, you know, you can definitely see a cross there. Because before I joined, you had Jolene Tempest on vocals, you had Seth Jackson on the guitar, and I have to also give a shout out to Ross Mellon as well. And that was the 9 Centuries lineup. 9 Centuries is essentially, I would say, an extreme metal album that focuses more on the black metal territory. So, like I said, like I joined and I had an idea of where I wanted it to go, and I brought a lot of songs and riffs to the band. But you can hear in Warlords where we're starting to cross from black metal into something else. And then by the time 2 years later, where we go to Burn It Up, there's a completely different change there. And the reason for that change is because once Warlords was released, Ross Mellon left the band. And Ross was the guy that started Bulletbelt with Steve. When he left, I became the only guitar player. So now I no longer had someone else bringing riffs in, or, you know, wanting to, you know, look at my riffs and say, well, what about if you do this? Now I had free reign. I was able to write whatever I wanted. And at the time, the other guys were on board with, something needs to change. We need to do something else. And if you listen to the Burn It Up record, you can totally tell that there is a completely different change. It's like a new band. And, we have that inside joke where it's kind of like when, Metallica released Load. You go from, Master of Puppets and Justice for All, the Black Album, and then Load. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I think that Burn It Up was our Load moment, but what we were trying to do is we were trying to create our Black Album, if you know what I mean. And I think that we made a really, really good album. There's some great songs on there. It's watered down. It's definitely not black metal. But we really tried to emphasize clean singing. And this is where Diego Attinger comes in, because Diego, not only is he an amazing screamer, but he's also a singer. And he can play the piano like no one I've ever seen before. On Warlords, we had another singer called Paul. He didn't sing, he just screamed. Once we brought Diego in, it allowed us the opportunity to write music that could suit a singer. And, if you're looking at where Bulletbelt is heading now, we've gone from Warlords to Burn It Up to now we're going somewhere completely different that is still accessible. It's still heavy, it's still Bulletbelt, but yeah, it is. It's definitely going more in the Dragon Force territory with, from a guitaring perspective. The songs are a lot faster, more technical, and but we're still trying hard to stay catchy, big hooky choruses, and without losing the integrity that Bulletbelt has worked hard to maintain over the last 16 years. Yeah.
I mentioned this to Steve. One of my favorite songs that Diego sang is "Burn the Witch." And
Burn the Witch. Yeah.
Because it's something that I can sing. I mean, I'm not a singer. I can sing in the toilet, obviously, but it's something rather than scream, which I love listening to black metal and stuff right now. Yeah. I mean, I've opened up the door, or my door, to black metal when I started my journey with this. I don't usually listen. I'm up to what's the heaviest? Pantera, the next one. Well, screaming is still real voice, but you know what I'm saying? I cannot sing like Warlords, the singer in Warlords. I cannot do that. Sure. But I can sing something that I want to sing. And sometimes I want to just sing.
You just want something with a good vocal melody that you can sing along to, right?
Like there's a melody in the song, right? And even cosmic, okay, this is nice. It's totally different from the rest of the Bulletbelt albums that I've heard.
Exactly.
You mentioned about Load from Metallica. I hope you won't turn into the Saint Anger, right? Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think Steve would want anything to do with that snare sound, but who knows? He may surprise me.
Who knows? He might.
I've known the guy for nearly 10 years, so he always seems to surprise me. But we definitely are not, definitely won't be going in the Saint Anger territory. Although, I want to stand up for Saint Anger and say I can understand what it was they were trying to do at the time. But
experimenting.
Yeah, exactly. Keeping up with the times as they've always done. But in terms of us, we, I have to, give a shout out to Dragon Force because, Sam Topman from Dragon Force is a good friend of ours as well. And, it's our relationship with Sam Topman that has allowed us to have a relationship with Dragon Force. And, we have been so incredibly lucky to be part of 2 Dragon Force albums so far. 2020's Extreme Power Metal, and also the most recent album that was released, Warp Speed Warriors. And Bulletbelt did all of the backup vocals for the record. And Sam and Steve, they went to high school together. They flatted together, and it was when in Wellington, Well, actually over in Masterton. Then they both moved to Wellington and were flatting, and they had a band together. I can't remember the band name now. Demoniac, that's right, yeah. And then that was when Sam said, I'm going to go back home to England, and then started Demoniac, which then became Dragon Force. And
is he from here, Sam?
Sam's parents, they are from England, and that's where Sam was born. But then they moved to Masterton, New Zealand, and Sam was brought up here and became friends with Steve from Bulletbelt. Nice. And then they, punk-ass little kids started this, black metal band, taking photos in cemeteries and, pigs' heads and shit. So But it's through the relationship with Sam that, you know, we have become ingrained with Dragon Force. And naturally, when you're hanging around, you know, a guy like Sam Totman, especially as a guitar player for me, I want to know, how do you do that shit? But that has become ingrained in my songwriting with where we want to go in terms of a band, and it's coming out in the next record where you'll hear the Dragon Force influence. Yeah.
I'm excited. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Do you have the date on?
No.
No.
I can't.
It's a secret.
Look, what I can.
You can tell me after
I don't have a date.
Okay.
If I had a date, I'd tell you. But what I can say is that I have to be real careful about what I say, because there's a lot of things that are going to happen around the album release that coincide with other projects that are outside of our own. But the information about the new record that I can give you is, as I've said, it's fast, it's heavy, the guitar work is insane, the songs are catchy as hell. We've already shot one music video for the song that coincides with another project that I can't name. And we're definitely going to have new music this year. Yeah, okay. Excellent. Yeah, you know, we definitely will have new music this year. In terms of a record release, I would say maybe towards the end of the year or potentially 2026. Yeah.
You mentioned Sam from Dragon Force. First time I saw Herman Lee, you probably know Herman Lee, and he was playing like his Ibanez, and he's got this thin guitar wherein he's carrying his Ibanez with the whammy bar.
Yeah.
That just made me buy an Ibanez with a thin kind of.
So you could bang it on your knee like he does.
Yeah, but I stopped playing. So. Okay.
Why?
No life.
It's never too late, man.
Yeah, life.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Yeah, but I still play sometimes. That's why if you see, I have my gears as well. Like they're just there waiting, like calling out, like, come on, sure. Anyway, that's part of the plan. But who knows? Sometimes one day.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, being a dad, being a business owner, you know, it's kind of hard to find the time to be able to do, you know, to balance being in a band and, you know, being a dad as well. You know, it's really hard. But at the same time, I'm just really lucky that I have a very understanding family that support me and know that when I've got to go and do my shit, I'm going to go and do it. And we all together work around that to make that all happen so that it can happen.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky enough that I've been playing the guitar and music since I was a kid. So it's like riding a bike. It only takes me, you know, a few minutes to pick it back up again. And even though it might be a couple of weeks and I haven't played the guitar, but I can pick it up again and it just comes back to me naturally. Yeah.
I was looking at your guitar. Oh.
Yeah.
Can oh, this is a little heavy. Was this your original guitar?
So it's a Jackson Kelly. I've been playing Jackson Kellys since I was 13 years old.
13?
13, yeah. Yeah, I went to the record store, the rock shop, and my dad told me not to get one of those star-looking guitars, and I came out with a Jackson Kelly. Not this Jackson Kelly, but, you know, that's the shape that I've been playing for, you know, over 25 years. It's become part of my style. Yeah. In terms of this actual guitar, I found it secondhand on Trade Me, and a guy brought it brand new. He was a university student, played it for 5 minutes and then put it in his closet, and it sat there for 2 years until he realized I need to sell it. And I bought it off him for $500. Yeah. First thing that I did with it is I took out the pickups and I put in some Dimebuckers. So, you know, I've been playing Dimebucker pickups, you know, for just as long as, you know, I've been into metal music.
Do you do lead guitars as well?
Sorry?
Do you do lead guitars?
Lead guitars? Yeah, I am. Yep. So I do all the leads. On the Warlords record and Burn It Up, I did all of the lead guitars except for a few songs where we had guest guitarists come in.
So, first time I got into metal is I already told this story to someone. I forgot who was that. Anyway, regardless of that, if you're listening, you're probably the person I'm talking about. I used to listen to rap music. I was into rap like there's this Filipino artist who's a rapper. Like we call him Master Rapper because he's the one of the most popular rappers in the Philippines, and his name is Francis Magalona. You know, when you listen to Airwaves, it's always the same song they play. Now you get to absorb it and something like that. Then my show of cousin, I heard him play Sweet Child of Mine, like repeatedly, intro, intro, intro. Like, that's fucking cool music.
Yeah. Speaking of rap, man, I went through a phase where, I wanted to be Eminem and get the blonde haircut. Thank God I didn't, but,
Yeah.
But, in terms of Sweet Child of Mine, I mean, that was another song. Like, I remember listening to Welcome to the Jungle in my bedroom when I must have been about 11, and this is cool. And then, my dad walking past my room and going, "Hey, what are you listening to?" And I'm like, "I'm listening to Guns N' Roses." And he's like, "Is that my CD?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Listen to song number 9. That's the best song." So I put on song number 9 and, heard Sweet Child of Mine. Yeah.
What album would you listen to?
Are you asking me for my Desert Island album? Like if I'm stuck on a deserted island and I've only got one album, what would it be? Fuck, man. Does the greatest hits count? I would say.
Greatest dance hits.
Shit, man. Off the top of my head, I would say. Oh God, I would say Queen Greatest Hits 1.
Brian May.
Brian May. Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Brian May is a genius. Yeah. And I went through a phase where, when I was about 15, 16, all I listened to was Queen. And, I'd been brought up with Queen, but when I rediscovered them again as a teenager, now I had the technical abilities to be able to understand what he was doing. And oh my God. Yeah. Brian May, his guitar style is incorporated in everything that I do. Yeah.
So you grew up from Palmy, right? Is that correct?
No, I grew up in a small town called Taihape.
Where's that?
It's right in the fucking middle of nowhere. It's literally, they call it the piss stop capital of New Zealand. It's literally like, it's in between Palmerston North and Taupo.
Right. How is it like growing up as a metalhead in that small town?
I'm really, I would say that, it's very hard to be understood when you're the only one who listens to that type of music, especially being the only musician, but being a metalhead in a town like that, I was the only one who was listening to metal. I was the only one who was wearing Metallica t-shirts. I remember when, going back to Saint Anger, I remember when Saint Anger came out, 2023 or whatever it was, and, around the world, there's people lining up outside music stores at midnight to wait. And, I was the only one who went into the store to buy Saint Anger. And, she said, "I only got one because I knew that you'd be the only one who got it." So, yeah. That's how small the town was.
For the record, I have a Saint Anger album as well. So just saying. So,
Yeah, man. I like I said, I appreciate what they did. And I saw Metallica on the Saint Anger tour as well. And so, James Hetfield is a huge influence on every single metal guitarist ever to exist. And, I think to be able to go and see him, one last time is quite special.
What's the lowest point that you've got being a metalhead in that small town, or probably in life, generally speaking?
Oh man, that's a deep question. I would say probably when I was about 19, I was in a death tribute band, and I was touring around New Zealand, doing shows. But then I also became friends with the guys in the Megadeth tribute band, especially Doug Tenbrooker and Viv, and found myself traveling to Wellington, every single weekend. And it sucked. It sucked having to drive there all the time. But most importantly, I made friends that I didn't have in Taihape growing up. And every time that I had to leave and drive back, it was, it was painful because I knew that I was going back to nothing. And I'd say that's probably the lowest point, just realizing that, I'm not a kid anymore. And what I want, where my dream is in another city or in another place. And I have to leave this, I have to leave my mum, my dad, my friends that I had growing up, and, chase this dragon, you know, this heavy metal dream. And yeah.
So, what's stopping you to go to those cities, or is it now you're now living the
Now
dream?
or
Now you're
well, if I didn't make that sacrifice then, I wouldn't be where I am now. I would never have met Tim from Bulletbelt. I would never have met Steve, Diego, or Isaac, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And it's because of that decision that I made that, you know, I've been lucky enough to travel the world, have a #1 album, make albums, tour, meet my musical heroes, make music videos, become, you know, friends with Dragon Force and things like that. You know, so I mean, it was a sacrifice that I knew I had to make. But just, you know, at that young age of 19, you know, you're not a man, but you're not a boy. You know, so it's a very big decision that I had to make. Yeah.
What are your dreams? What
To be happy. Yeah, and
what makes you happy?
Looking after my family for a start. That's obviously #1 because that will allow me to be able to be happy in music as well. I'm really lucky that I've been able to achieve all of my musical dreams. Obviously, I'd love to go overseas and play Varkin and, you know, do tours with, you know, Metallica, obviously, you know, if
Like
or
the ultimate dream.
Yeah, you know, go and tour with big bands and things like that. I mean, I'd love to do that. I mean, yeah, so I mean, everything that I've wanted to do on my musical bucket list has already been ticked many times over. So I'm really lucky in that regard that I'm not still trying to chase something. I'm not still trying to, you know, make it, because in my mind I've already made it. So, you know, at my age now, my goal really is more just to maintain my level of success and enjoy it while at the same time, you know, being happy. But, you know, eventually I'd love to be able to, you know, retire and be happy and you know, everything's sorted at home, you know, family's happy, everything's great. But then what I do is Bulletbelt or music becomes my full-time income. You know, I'm able to enjoy life that way. Yeah.
Is it doing it now, or there's still more work?
Definitely not. The music industry sucks, and I mean, it is what you make it. I mean, if you know, Dimebag Darrell said something great 20 years ago, and it's still really true today. I mean, if you think that you're going to make $1 million playing music, you know, you may as well hang it up now, because it's not true. I mean, we are extremely lucky that we are all on the same path. You know, I'm talking about Bulletbelt here, where we understand that if we want to do this, we have to invest together, split everything, make it all happen, and then reimburse ourselves with whatever income we make from tours and album sales and things like that. And it's doing it together that allows us the opportunity to be able to be as successful as we are. And there's still so far that we need to go. Yeah. But, you know, it's not as if we're throwing money into this thing and not getting anything back, because we are. And we're really lucky that the Bulletbelt brand is healthy enough to be able to get us to where we are now and where we expect it to be. Yeah.
So what do you believe in? What do you believe in, like, as a person? Like,
I mean, look, if there's one thing I'd say, it's integrity. Yeah. Do what you say you're going to do and stay true to that. Yeah.
probably it's a two answer one question. If there's a one band that you wanna tour with, who would that be? If it's local, who would that be local band with? If it's international, who would that
I would
be?
love to do a tour, New Zealand tour with Organectomy. And the reason I say that is because we're both bands from New Zealand that are touring overseas. We're beginning to make our own waves internationally, but we've never toured together. We're both completely different styled. And I think that bringing the two different genres of metal together on a tour would be quite big. And not just from a business perspective, but, you know, the guys are pretty cool. And yeah, that Organectomy is a band that I would love to tour with. Internationally, you know, that was the second part of the question, right? Who would I want to tour with? Shit, can it be anybody? Yeah. I'd love to tour with Dragon Force. I mean, I've toured with Sam before, you know, through Australia and New Zealand. We've been on the albums. Those songs that were on the albums have been made into music videos. Sam's been instrumental in helping us, in our careers as well. But the one thing that we haven't been able to do is do a tour with them. Well, I lie. Bulletbelt has done a New Zealand tour with Dragon Force, but I wasn't in the band then, so that doesn't count.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I would love to tour through Europe with Dragon Force. Yeah.
Where are you heading as a musician, I guess, and as Josh, where are you heading?
I would say that I'm always writing, constantly writing. I mean, if you were to look in my secret vault of songs, there's hundreds of songs in there, and most of them I categorize into Bulletbelt or other projects or, genres or whatever. But I'm constantly writing, and it's something that I've always done. So in terms of where I'm heading, I guess it's just a natural progression of where I left off from the last song. But, I usually I like the songs that I like, and I usually think, what is it that I like about this song, and how can I write a song that encapsulates what I like about that, but make it into my own thing? I think as I've gotten older, I'm going to completely contradict myself here, but I think that, as I got older, I realized that I didn't want to be the fastest guitar player in the world or the best guitar player or, things like that. And you can really hear that on the Burn It Up record because there's hardly any solos from me. And when there are solos, they're more melodic solos that fit the piece of the music. Whereas if you listen to Warlords, I was much younger then, and I'm all over the place, You would think as I've gotten older that I would still follow that trajectory of, insane guitar solos to something called Burn It Up where it's more melodic and little. And then you'd think that I'd continue down that path, but no, I went like that. And on this next record, it's insane. The guitar work is crazy. We've really tried to throw everything that we could at it. So I've gone backwards in time. Yeah. I have not slowed down. I'm not writing slower songs. I'm not writing, lovey-dovey ballads. I might still be writing lovey-dovey songs, but they're heavy as fuck, so I'm getting faster. Yeah. My musical taste is very, very large. And, I don't just listen to metal. I love pop music. I love classic rock. I love all kinds of music, maybe except gangster rap. But some of it I can tolerate, but most of it I put all into Bulletbelt, especially a lot of pop music. I like I'd say that's my what do you call it? Like the secret. I don't know. There's a term for it. It's like your secret shit that you listen to. But yeah, pop music, I love it, man. And I try and write a lot of it, but a lot of Bulletbelt songs, if you really listen to the songs that I've written, they're pop songs. Yeah.
If there's a core band that has influenced you, listening a while ago, so what's your core band?
My core band is Rammstein. Yep. They've done it for me for the last 25 years and they still do it for me today. I think that everything that they do is great. I've seen them live twice, 2001, 2011, and I'm hoping to see them again, if they ever come back down to Australasia. But they're a band that they just resonated me right from the first listen. And their style, the way that they look, their live performances, the way that they write songs, the production, the fucking guitars, the drums, especially the flames, and I don't necessarily like them for the obvious reason of the duas. Like, I mean, obviously that's a great song, but I love the deeper cuts, and I think that they are a band that if I could only listen to one band for the rest of my life, it would be Rammstein. And a lot of people, be like, what the hell? Like, why would you be listening to Rammstein? And for those reasons, yeah, they just do it for me. Especially Christoph Schneider, the drummer. I mean, because I play drums as well, if there was a band that I could, fill in for one show, it would be Rammstein playing the drums. Yeah.
You play the drums, so
I'm a drummer, yeah.
Okay. Is it with the Megadeth tribute band? Is it?
I started playing the drums in high school because, back then I didn't have many musicians to play with. Most of the musicians that I played with were that were at high school with me or primary school were into completely different genres to me. Or they, I'm not trying to talk myself up, but they weren't where I was because I developed quite fast. And what I realized I had to do was learn all of the instruments, and basically what I would do is, like, at interval, I would go into the music room and record myself playing the drums to, like, I don't know, Back in Black from AC/DC, and then quickly play the bass as well, so that at lunchtime I could plug in my guitar with a microphone and push play to what I'd recorded, and then I had a band, and I'd just play that song over and over and over again, and every day it was a different song. But that's how I began to play the drums. In terms of the first band that I ever played drums in, that was the Megadeth tribute band Demon Fetal Harvest, and then I joined a Sepultura tribute band called Refuse Resist, and that kind of allowed me to build my chops up. And then from there, I haven't really drummed in any other bands professionally. I usually use most of my drum techniques for writing songs for Bulletbelt, because like I said, when I write songs for Bulletbelt and give it to the guys, I fully orchestrate it, play the drums, the bass, guitars, keyboards, sing, and then give it to them. And if they take it, they do. If they don't, they don't. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, we might be ending shortly. What is heavy metal for you?
What is heavy metal? Heavy metal, to me, is more than just a genre of music. I think that it's a lifestyle. I think it's a community, and you can go back. You've right from Black Sabbath. You've got nearly 50 to 60 years worth of data to look at of how it affects people's lives, how it brings people together. It creates communities. It creates bars, which creates business. It's more than just a genre of music. And I think that metalheads in general are quite easygoing people. If I'm walking down the street and I see someone wearing a Death shirt or something like that, you can give them a nod, and you might be wearing a Metallica shirt, and you just know there's something between you, that there's a connection there. So it's more than heavy metal is yeah, it's like its own universe.
Okay. Any final words, final message?
To people that want to become a musician, is to do it for the love of music first. Don't do it expecting that you're going to be rich. If you do want to be a professional musician, understand the business first, and try to enjoy yourself as a player at the same time, whatever instrument it is that you want to play. And most importantly, find like-minded people. There's nothing worse than being in a band with people that they don't take it seriously, or they're not on the same level as you. You need to actively go out there and find people that want the same goal as you. They share the same vision, so that you can move forward together. Because it took me a long time to realize that I couldn't do everything myself. I needed to find a gang of guys together that I could share my vision with and move forward together, and that vision was Bulletbelt.
Okay. What's next for Bulletbelt?
Okay, up next for Bulletbelt, we have a lot of things happening behind the scenes. We've been very quiet over the last 6 months, and that's because we've been actively working on this new record and all of its various products, as well as working, as I said before, with other organizations which I can't name, to make a product that is very special. I think, I know that every band's going to say this, but I think that this is the best work that we've ever done. And the reason I say it is because of how much work we've put into it. This has been 2 years in the making, and we are working with a renowned music engineer and producer called Damien Reynaud. And he has worked with Fear Factory, Arch Enemy, Baby Metal, Dragon Force, and now he's working with us. So he's taking our music and putting it onto a worldwide sonic platform. And just that alone is fucking awesome. But we're working with a lot more people outside of Bulletbelt on this next record than we've ever worked with before to make this thing fucking huge. And that's why I think that it's going to be so special. Obviously, I can't give away too much information, but I can say that there will be music this year. Next year, there will definitely be an album, and obviously the corresponding tours and whatnot. So that's what's up with us.
Okay, right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And
no worries.
Yeah, and sharing the guitar with me. I should have brought mine so we can just jam. Thank you.
Cool, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.